Show with Jim Check and Ian Burns.
I'm Jim Check, with me, Ian Burns. I'm in Kelowna, another beautiful day in the Okanagan as the trees green up here. Traffic moving nicely in the central Okanagan. Looks like sunny. You get sun streaming in from your window there. How are things out there in the nation's capital?
It is sunny, but it's also very, very cold. So I'll take it though.
I've had a wardrobe malfunction similar to Justin Bieber there. I lost one of my collar buttons here, so you'll have to tough it out with me here. Do you believe in the liberal alternate reality? The finance media is not buying it as much as the mainstream media. Finance media putting out a couple of pieces talking about just like backward spin, and it's like a bad Naked Gun movie where Leslie Nielsen is standing in front of the, like the fireworks shop or whatever, and it's just like nothing to see here. Oh no, that's I think Lieutenant Drummond actually that's standing in front of the fireworks. Nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see here.
Well, as I was saying, Comical Ali, from Saddam Hussein's spin doctor, who would go out there and say, like, we've destroyed all the American tanks, they're on the run.
We do have a clip here to show you to get you going, though, because we just wanted to let you know what the spin is. The alternate reality, according to Mark Carney. Let's take it away, Mark. Should be.
The world is more divided and dangerous.
As the world becomes more divided and dangerous, Canadians are uniting.
And we live in an increasingly dangerous, divided, and intolerant world. We become united in the face of a more dangerous and divided world.
And in a more dangerous and divided world, we are ever more grateful for your
In a more divided and uncertain world.
It is a more dangerous and divided world, unfortunately.
We're meeting at one of those hinge moments, those turning points in history. The world's more divided and
In a
dangerous.
fast-changing, more divided, more uncertain world.
Happy holidays, Canada. In a more divided and uncertain world.
The world's more divided and dangerous.
We will reinforce Canada's security for an increasingly dangerous and divided world.
So here's the current situation. The world, as I said earlier, is more dangerous and divided.
More dangerous and divided.
The best one is the Christmas message. That's obviously the best one. I think you're on mute. That's the best one for sure. Merry Christmas in a more divided world.
It is quite funny, isn't it? It's like, Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah. We're all gonna die. It's like, Mark, chill out, have some eggnog.
And then isn't it an absolute failure of the Liberals for 11 years? Weren't they the ones that were building a more cohesive world? Wasn't that their whole thing, social cohesion? So is that an utter failure on their part? We've got some echo from Ian right now, or is it clearing up? I don't know. What do you think?
Let's hope the Desert Fox can squirrel that away. Darth Carney.
Pierre Poilievre has reacted and put out his own video there. Seems like we're getting some feedback loop here, though. There's a lot of scattering going on back there. But let's listen in on Pierre. Well, actually, we're not going to play it because Pierre Poilievre put out his video. We didn't play Carney's, but Poilievre responded to his video with his own recording. And he accused Carney of pushing fear, failing to deliver on promises. He says, we don't need any more costly illusions from Carney. We need real-world results. We need some results at the grocery store, the gas pump, and in your bank account. Because we have the highest inflation in the G7. That's not disputable. We have the highest food inflation in the G7. And that's been holding true. We have record food bank usage. That's a fact. We've lost jobs. Our youth unemployment is, nearing 15% in some areas of Canada. It's over 15%. And, we said we're going to build homes faster. It's actually slowed down. And the federal deficit continues to increase. The one thing I notice about Pierre Poilievre's video versus Mark Carney's video, Poilievre's video comments are on. Mark Carney's are off.
There's a real philosophical divide there, isn't there?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Mark, you and doesn't even allow you to have YouTube comments. There was live comments when he was live, but for the comments after that, they were turned off. Just if you let us know how our audio is right now, we're just kind of like fighting with something here. But let us know how the audio and video quality is going.
We'll get there eventually.
We'll get there. As soon as we get a few more sausage rolls, we'll invest in a couple other things here. I mean, we did spend most of the budget on this, but this is probably the most important prop. If more liberals owned this, it'd be a better country right now.
I would say that inevitably Pierre Poilievre is going to be attacked, isn't he? They're going to say, well, I mean, they probably already have. I just can't be bothered to go and listen to them because it's so tedious. But they've probably already come out and said, this was just a campaign-style video, just the same old stuff. But that's why I've been so keen to emphasize that what Mark Carney did was just a campaign video. I mean, therefore, Poilievre's within his rights, isn't he, to respond in kind. Except when Mark Carney does a campaign video, instead of receiving it with insults and anguish, as they do with Pierre Poilievre, they say, listen to this wise sage. Listen to Gandalf teach the hobbits. You know, it's like just such an obvious double standard where just by virtue of Mark Carney being Mark Carney, he gets taken seriously when he does a campaign video, unlike Mr. Poilievre.
The Financial Post putting out this piece here saying Carney's forward guidance is mainly backward spinning. I mean, again, we've said this on the show many times. The finance media, a lot more, what you say is unvarnished or unpolished, as opposed to the mainstream media where they just seem to want to polish Mark Carney's apples. Whereas the finance media has a tougher time because, you know, you can actually see it in the numbers, right? And the numbers typically do not lie. And we're going to show you some of those numbers in a bit here.
But also because people, like, it's a sad state of affairs, but people take their money more seriously than they do their vote or the political system that rules them. You know, they're more bothered about their money. So the financial press, as a consequence, has to actually tell the truth. Otherwise, the people who, you know, use their services would lose money and stop reading the newspapers, wouldn't they? So they have to have, it has to correspond with reality because it's related to money, which is the central concern for most people. Politics, on the other hand, is deemed to be some sort of, parlor game or something. It's looked upon as being less serious, and therefore people are willing to read newspapers and media outlets that don't tell the truth.
High praise there. Secret base rigs, secret bass rigs there says, set notifications to other streams, chose this one. We do thank people that choose this one, and the community is really strong here as well. So that's what we appreciate, and we try to interact with the comments as we do our stream as well. We try to make sure you're part of it because you're the person that matters. Because we report to you, we do not report to the Liberal Party as much of the mainstream media does here in Canada. And this one here from Kim Moody, the difference between Naked Gun and Carney's fiscal strategy is one of them is knowingly funny. The other is a tragic comedy, like almost like a Shakespearean comedy. Tragedy. It's if it wasn't so like tragic, it would be funnier, right? Because, you know, some of the stuff they say, like, you know, when affordability has never been so good. And then when they asked Wayne there yesterday, the Conor McGregor fan, and, you know, Vassy put it to him, well, who's it more affordable for? And he just went and spinned it. But again, she should have cut him off and said, no, just answer the question. Not, it's fine for you. Just answer the question. These people shouldn't be allowed.
She should have told him to undo his top button.
Yeah,
because he looked like he was suffering a little bit.
Choked off all the time. Some news this morning as Carney's going to name a new trade deal. How many times has he named new trade negotiators? But here's Pierre Poilievre talking about his trade deal with the United States. Listen to Pierre.
Windsor is reeling. A $16 billion industry in Windsor has just been smashed with increased tariffs on particularly mold making. Have you heard Mark Carney even mention it? He was busy waving around a figurine of Sir Isaac Brock, comparing himself to a 19th century war hero. And yet he doesn't have a single word to utter about the people of Windsor whose jobs are hemorrhaging in light of these new tariffs. He refuses to stand up against these wrong-headed American tariffs. He's done absolutely nothing on this file in the last year other than use it to stoke fear and distract from his catastrophic failings here at home. Windsor is...
The auto sector, we've talked about this on this show so many times. Like if you're in Ontario and relying on the auto sector, I mean, you got to be very nervous and have a lot of anxiety for the way they're handling Canada's most important manufacturing sector here. It seems like they're willingly or knowingly and intentionally causing harm to that sector. That means so much to so many people in Ontario. We're going to show you a lot.
The new committee, the new advisory committee or whatever it is on US-Canada trade that was announced with much fanfare this morning, which is, by the way, exactly or just about exactly the same as the one that he announced last year, including with some of the same people like Jean Charest or whatever. On that committee are a couple of people associated with the car industry. So don't worry. You know, they're there. They're at this advisory board and they're going to get probably 30 seconds in Mark Carney's ear once a month or something like that. So I'm sure it's going to be sorted out.
Welcome, Sundaski, to Thinking Canadians. We appreciate that as well. Your support of independent media. We do appreciate that a lot. We do have one more clip here from Pierre Poilievre here. Let's play this clip here.
Windsor is reeling.
Nope. It's the same one.
Stone, do you think that needs to change, that he needs to soften it? The Americans have been clear.
Soften it, just get to work. He said the other day that he was going to stop showboating. Those were his words. And he was going to get serious. Well, a serious prime minister a year into this conflict would be able to tell you his plan. I've told you my plan. I've been very detailed in my plan. Nobody knows Mark Carney's plan. Probably not even him. He hasn't even told us whether he wants to renew USMCA. And if he doesn't, okay, tell us how he's going to replace the $600 billion of exports. Tell the 2.6 million Canadians who rely on trade with the US where their jobs are going to come from. So far, he hasn't done any of that. We're a year into this. He was elected on the single promise that he would negotiate a win with the US. And since that time, he's been losing. Double the tariffs on steel and aluminum, triple the tariffs on lumber, broadening of tariffs out to other products that weren't formerly covered. And he's done nothing to stop it other than to wave the white flag.
That's good. I mean, they admitted just recently they're not even negotiating. But here's this piece here. Well, Mexico has been negotiating. Here's a piece from CBC on the trade deal here.
I want to say there's sort of a small reality check today because U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer is in Mexico now, bolstering the perception that many have that Mexico is much further ahead than Canada on its dealings and review. And there's a story from Reuters that Mexico's president is hopeful for a sectoral deal on aluminum, steel, and autos even before the CUSMA review is done. And that's something at this point where only Canadians could dream of. You know, that sectoral deal, many have been resigned to the idea that a deal on those three areas would only come with the CUSMA review.
You'd have to ask why that video yesterday when Mexico's that far ahead. Was it just to put an excuse there to say, oh, well, you know, because America's the enemy, whereas Mexico wants to deal with the enemy and we've chosen not to deal with the enemy? Like, what was the purpose of that video yesterday? Because obviously it's been a failure, but then all of a sudden today they're announcing that they got a new trade delegation that's going to go down there, a new and improved one. How many times have they new and improved this trade delegation?
Which is just the same thing again. I mean, what has it got us so far? As much as we like and respect our good friends, such as Jean Charest and the rest of the people on that committee, what has it achieved exactly? Can anybody explain? Although in the press release from the PMO, which I'm looking at right now that we received this morning, it says, Canada's new government is forging a new economic and security relationship with the United States. Is it? Anyway, it goes on to say Prime Minister Carney has secured the best deal of any major US trading partner. Mark, just listen to that again. Prime Minister Carney has secured the best deal of any major US trading partner. Can anybody remember Mark Carney securing that deal? I think it was
the deal we had.
Justin Trudeau, wasn't it? It was quite a while ago that deal was secured.
The deal we had has actually gotten worse as Mark Carney has taken over the reins. He's actually made the deal worse. But that's what they are good at, is spin. And then the people that buy it, oh my God, like, you got to give your head a shake. And
I can't believe the audacity. I'm gonna find that and paste it so people can read. This is what they send. This is the sort of thing that they send to the press. Just look at that. It's absurd. I talk about Leslie Nielsen, a great Canadian. It really is Nielsen-esque, isn't it? It's just completely, that is completely parallel to the real world.
And they can't even remember yesterday. Yesterday, the world was dangerous and we don't need America. Like we need to move on from America. And then he secured the best deal. And just like, which day are we living in here? I don't even know how. And this is Howard Lutnick's take on it. I think you talked about this yesterday, but I thought it was important to put this in here today.
That is like the worst strategy I've ever heard. They suck. Look, we are a $30 trillion economy, right? We are the consumer of the world, okay? Carney has a problem with us. He gets on a plane and he goes to China. Does he think the Chinese economy is going to buy his stuff? China is entirely an export-driven economy, right? So what did? He came back and said, oh, we'll take their electric cars. I mean, is this nuts?
So it's like going to an Amway convention and saying that you're going to sell Amway to somebody else, right? Do you know what I mean? You're going to an Amway convention to talk about selling. Canada is an export nation. China is an export nation. Like, okay, then they put up this graphic here to show you how important the United States is. That's the trade, just visually. That's the trade.
You can barely see. I mean, you got UK and Germany. I think Italy and France are also visible there, but you could barely see Europe. And yet we spend so much of our energy on bloody Europe. Like, how many times has Carney gone to Paris or London or whatever? And yet, look at that. That sort of gives you an indication of how futile that really was. It's like, just think of it if you're a businessman or something. That's like going to see your 20th highest customer or something. It represents like, what's this, like 3% of your income as a company. But it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to go see him again. I know it's like the 7th time and I haven't seen my main customer who pays all the bills, but like, I'm just going to go and see him again because I like him. He's a good lad. All right.
And if we can put up the next one there. And he's gotten the attention of American media. This is NBC News now. Yes, we showed you CBS yesterday. And the most important thing that is this globe here. Like, this can't be driven home enough. We sit on top, according to the Globe, we sit on top the world's largest economy, the world's largest consumer economy, by unmatched by nothing. Like, you know what I mean? It is the world's largest consumer economy by a factor. The world's currency, the reserve currency, the world's reserve currency, the world's strongest military, where all the tech comes from, like basically the tech hub of the world. And yet we...
Capital market. Well,
capital markets, yeah, that's where you go to get finance. That's where Brookfield went. Mark Carney wrote the letter himself.
He knows better than anyone.
And said, I had to go to the United States for capital. Mark Carney's wife lives there. His kids live there.
It's also the media, the media superpower of the world. Hence, Chrystia Freeland, Justin Trudeau, Mark Carney, etc. all go down there when they want to say something important. They go and talk to American news companies or American media companies. I mean, it's literally everything. World's largest oil producer. We could just go on and on. It's actually unnecessary. I think it's superfluous. People realize that this country, for good or ill, doesn't matter what you think of America, is absolutely dominant in basically every possible way, except mass manufacturing, and that's what China does. But that's a relationship where you buy stuff from them. That's not a relationship where you sell them. So that's not something that you can base your economy on. They will make you your gadgets and whatnot, and you'll buy them off them. But they're not going to buy stuff off you, really, in return. And this is something that's really important. Obviously, you mentioned the US is the biggest consumer market in the world. That's not just an economic point. That's a cultural point. The reason that China's not much of a consumer in the world is because of culture. It's a cultural problem, if you want to look at it that way. I mean, the Chinese Communist Party looks at it as a problem, and they're trying their very hardest to persuade the Chinese people to change their attitudes, to change their culture so that they buy stuff more rather than just save it. So, you're not just like pushing against numbers here and economics. You're pushing against like the culture of the Chinese people. If you're persuaded somehow that they're going to become a great consumer, you're pushing against Chinese culture, more than 1 billion people's culture. Like, good luck with that, But America, on the other hand, has a culture of buying stuff, as we all know. It has a very energetic consumerist society.
We had a really good interview yesterday. Douglas Carswell, you need to go listen to it. Douglas Carswell was an MP, for a couple of really good reasons, was an MP in the UK. He changed party. He left the Conservative Party and joined UKIP. But he immediately called a by-election because he said that's what you need to do. You got to go listen to that. I mean, straight from his mouth. But one of the key points that he made yesterday that I think is relevant in this conversation is that he said a hedge fund manager, which is typically a very wealthy person in London, doesn't have the standard of living of a landscaper in Jackson, Mississippi. He said, in Jackson, Mississippi, the guy's, got a few cars, and it's just the quality of life and the, a better life can be had in Jackson, Mississippi, which used to be the lower end of the United States, right? Alabama and Mississippi were the lower rung of the states. But now, Mississippi, if the UK was to join America, it would have the lowest standard of living, or GDP per capita.
And it's a matter of time before Canada is leapfrogged, I would say. I would humbly submit. But I mean, a lot of people would come back to that and say, no, because if you're a hedge fund manager in London, then you can go to these cocktail parties and this museum and this gallery, and you can catch a flight on a Friday night to Milan or something like that. Yeah, that's like, it's hard to quantify, isn't it? But just in terms of like what you own and what your world looks like day to day. Yeah, in a place like Jackson, Mississippi, you're going to have, well, he was talking about like pools and things, wasn't he? And a boat. The boat is the big one. I think surprised people. Like, nobody in London has boats, really. I mean, it's a very rare thing. Or even England, it's a very rare thing to have a boat. Even though
only the people coming to England have a boat, right? Only the people arriving.
only the arrivals do. And then they're promptly stabbed with a knife. So those boats disappear. We don't get to keep the vessels. But yeah, the point that he was making is a pretty solid one. Obviously, some people prefer that urban life, but the average person, bear in mind, the average person in London or England is not a hedge fund manager. That's like a couple of hundred people or something like that. It's a very, very arcane minority job to have. Most people in London are earning less money than people in Mississippi, obviously, hence the GDP per capita difference. So,
if I were... Or my advice, if you're living in the UK or some other parts of the world and you watch that video, it might give you anxiety to move to Jackson, Mississippi. So that comes with a warning. But it's well worth your time to watch. The key thing on this NBC News, and it's the same for the CBS we showed you, they find the key point, and that's the headline. It's not a narrative that's being pushed. They find the key point. And the key point in this is Canada is identified the United States that was once a strength is now a weakness that must be corrected. That's the key point that Mark Carney is making. That doesn't go well when you're trying to do trade negotiations. And again, Jean Charest, as one of the people on these trade commissions, he's got absolute TDS. Why would you put a guy like that on a trade commission? There's the people on this trade commission. Look at that. Like, why would you put Jean Charest on there? Have you listened to him on CBC? You don't think that the American people watch, like Pete Hoekstra and that, and say, like, watch out for this guy. This guy's nuts. Why do you put these people on there?
But also Lana Payne, isn't she that one that like said that we should seize American property or something? I'm sure, I can't remember exactly what she said, but something along those lines.
Well, no, seize the assets in Canada if they leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also you got like you got O'Toole there. He's been quite vocal about his opposition to Trump, obviously. Yeah, it's
Actually,
it
you only
doesn't
need
fill
one
me
guy.
with
You
confidence.
probably need two people. If I was putting together this trade commission, I'd probably put two people on this trade commission. You put up the other tweet there for a second. You know who I'd put on there? Stephen Harper and Danielle Smith. No, go back up. Back. There you go. Stephen Harper and Danielle Smith, the only two that have had success. Put those two on there. The rest of these are just like, what for?
One of them as well there, Luc Thériault, is a Quebec sovereignty, like a Quebec separatist. So
No,
what's
that's what
the
I mean.
point of
Just
that?
like
He's
it's
going to
just,
go
and
there.
again,
He's going to go there to represent Canada, and he's going to say, "All right, first things first. Quebec should separate from Canada." It's like, all right, man. Thanks for the advice.
But we all know if you go into a meeting with 20 people, how do you get anything done? Who's leading the committee? You know what I mean? Like, you don't need 20 people. You need a negotiator, somebody that has the power to negotiate. Don't send somebody in the room that has no power to negotiate. You don't think the Americans can see through that? Don't send somebody into the room that has no power to negotiate. It's a waste of time. It's a literal waste of time.
This
There's
is just symbolism, isn't it? Obviously, it's the usual kind of. It's like everybody gets a prize, isn't it? Everybody gets a badge, and feels like they're involved.
Throughout history, when you've negotiated between two nations, do you send people that can't make deals? What's the purpose?
Do you send people? So a negotiation between two nations. Do you send people that don't believe in the nation's existence
itself?
Like that might be a problem, lads.
And do you send Jean Charest there, who has like TDS exploding out of his head? You might as well send Charlie Angus and Jean Charest, right? And Rachel
I'm
Notley.
surprised Charlie didn't make the grade, actually.
And Nishi. Might as well send all of them together. Just light it up. Here's Mark Carney, though, when asked about his new council. Before you play it, though, it reminds me of, I think, the 1970s, early 80s, when they, Tide and all the different, there was a big detergent wars when they were trying to do, and they would bring out Tide. And then all of a sudden it was Tide, new Tide. And then because, new and improved Tide. New and improved
Triple
Tide. This is a new council from the new government, as Ian put out there earlier. So listen in on the new council. What happened to the old council and the old council and the older council?
The council will give advice to. I lost my breath. I got to get back in shape. Minister LeBlanc, myself, Madame Charette as the negotiator, other ministers. I'm very pleased to have that group. It's a diverse group, leaders from the union movement, experts in industry, and CEOs in finance and across the economy.
And in his typical fashion, he says what he has to say and walks away.
Au revoir. But also, that phrase that he mangled the other day, plus ça change. That's what this is. Some things changed, but it's exactly the same. I mean, and hasn't even changed, really. It's just the same thing. Like, how could anybody be impressed by this? I don't know.
We just hired Janice Charest, and she was supposed to be the, be-all, end-all. She was the new and improved. She didn't last long, and all of a sudden we have a new and improved committee. Clownish. Absolutely clownish. You know why we have this probably? Because listen to this. This is in committee. This is what the Canadian manufacturers have to say.
But we need the federal government to listen. That's why we're here today. Now the next steps are we need to sit down on one-on-one basis with those ministers who can help us so that they can actually go to work for us in Washington. Although I did tell you that we are hiring consultants, we are seriously looking at consultants. We're being asked to do that so that we can get representatives in Washington to start to fight on our behalf. Thank you.
Did you hear what they said there? You hear what they're saying? It's not getting done, we're going to go do it ourselves. Not getting done, we're going to go do it ourselves. When Pierre Poilievre went down there, what was told about Pierre Poilievre interfering? And when Jamil went down there and has a relationship with J.D. Vance, they don't want anything to do with that. They don't want anything to do with Jamal's relationship with J.D. Vance. I want nothing to do with Pierre Poilievre going out and make some relationships down there. They just want to send people down there that have TDS and somebody that actually wants to see the end of this nation, Canada. That's who they send to negotiate.
Those consultants will probably be American anyway, won't they? So rather than having Canadian politicians elected by Canadians, recently elected, instead of that, give money to Americans to go and have a nice glass of whiskey with a senator or something. Like, bloody hell.
And here's why the manufacturers in Canada are scared. This chart. Like the numbers, the charts don't lie. The rhetoric, like Mark Carney saying one thing one day, the next day saying something else. Like, do you have that piece there in front of you that he read off there? You read that new and improved government here?
Yeah. You want me to read it again?
Yeah, read it again. It's worth reading again while we look at this chart.
This is this is literally the first sentence. Canada's new government is forging a new economic and security relationship with the United States. Prime Minister Carney has secured the best deal of any major US trading partner. 85% of our trade with the United States remains tariff-free. Then he goes on to talk about preserving that unique Canadian advantage.
What the hell was with the video yesterday when you compare it? If you put those two things side by side, what do you got?
Yeah. It's kind of like, yeah, everything's fine. Everything's not fine. We're all going to die. It's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, really, isn't it?
It's like we might as well play the New World Order video while we're at it, right? Like, it's just absolutely crazy.
Turn your eyes away at the end.
Check this chart out. If we can make that full screen, please. The top one is Canadian manufacturing. The bottom one is U.S. manufacturing. U.S. manufacturing for the last 16 quarters is on an upswing. Not so much in Canada. I mean, China gutted both the nations for manufacturing as people offshored.
But no, Jim, you don't seem to be reading that chart properly. Look, the US there in Q1 of this year is very, very slightly down on what looks to be Q4 of 2025. So, you're wrong. You've misinterpreted it.
You know, and we won't play this clip, but Jasmine Lane had Pete Hoekstra on and said there's been no serious negotiations since October. But there's been a lot of rhetoric, though. A lot of rhetoric on how we should be scared of the United States, how you shouldn't go there. Tell you, no, you shouldn't go there, including Justin Trudeau saying you shouldn't go there while he's down there partying at Coachella. Mark Carney's wife lives down there. Kids live down there. All his money's down there. And yet for you, you shouldn't go there.
Well, that's not being confirmed, we should say, that Diana Fox Carney lives in America. But that's where, I think that's where her work is or something. Mm-hmm. So obviously she must have some kind of relationship with it. Obviously their kids, I think, is it like at least a couple of them are in America, aren't they, for university? I think one of them's actually graduated and she works for like a company in America. So it's kind of graduated and stayed on. I mean, obviously the Carney, either way, whatever the facts are, the Carney family has a very, very warm relationship with the United States.
Food professor said he spoke this weekend to both Americans and Canadians in British Columbia. And he said, people just want to get along and do business. Not a single person in the room saw the other country as a threat or a weakness. Not a one. Most people don't. That rhetoric that he spews out there, I don't know who's eating that up. Who's got the bowl out there? The Jean Charest, the Charlie Angus's, you know, the Nishis, the Wab Canoes, David Eby. Who believes this? Do you even think they believe that nonsense that they spew? I'm not sure how anybody can believe it. But here's the reality again. Here's the reality check for you. Canada, #1 again in food inflation. And this has come down actually, but it's probably likely going to go up again with the price of fuel. Because they did
it makes sense, that chart, though, doesn't it? It makes perfect sense that we would be right there with Japan. Japan, obviously, as we've mentioned before, a country that is almost uniquely devoid of natural resources.
Yeah, no energy.
Energy, land, even, to grow food. So it would make sense, wouldn't it, that Canada, because Canada's a lot like Japan, isn't it? We don't have any resources here, last time I checked.
We don't have any we want to use. How's that?
Not only that, but we won't let Japan use them either, even though they ask.
We don't have any that are usable. And, this is farmers saying, like the Canadian farmers feel like they're rolling the dice on fuel and fertilizer purchases as prices fluctuate due to that war. And I've said that, even getting gas in your car, it feels like you're winning the lottery or not. You drive up and you're just like, oh no, today it's this, tomorrow it's that. And we haven't invested in our energy. We have not invested in refineries. We have not invested in pipelines. We could have mitigated much of this here in Canada. Mitigated much of this for the world even by having supply. Because when supply gets cut somewhere else, if you can increase supply, because it's a supply and demand thing. It's basically a supply and demand thing. Canada could have eased this for the world. Instead, we shirked that responsibility because of Mark Carney and his book Values and the Greta Thunbergs and the David EVs as they put the provinces and the nation and driven people into record numbers and food bank lineups and into poverty lineups. And then the Liberals stand up there and ask for applause as they dole out some crumbs there for people for a GST rebate so that they can buy a few more groceries. Not enough to make a difference, but just enough to stand at the podium for.
And it is ridiculous with some of the fertilizer, because the reason that fertilizer prices are going up is because they produce certain fertilizers in the Gulf. Why do they do that? You might be asking. Because the main input is energy, and they've got loads of energy.
What?
So we know another country like that, don't we, with loads of energy? Oh, well.
You know why Mark Carney's putting new in front of all his press releases recently? This next graphic tells you why. That's why he puts new in there, because he wants to distance himself from his own past. He was the economic advisor for 5 years of this. And most of the Liberals that are in this cabinet are the same Liberals that were there before. Like Karina Gold's not in the cabinet now, but Karina Gold wanted to landlock Alberta resources. Literally said that in a tweet. Let's landlock.
Catherine McKenna as well. We were talking about her wisdom yesterday, weren't we?
Yeah. Catherine McKenna, Stephen Guilbeault. I mean, they won't even give him the microphone right now from fear of what he's going to say. Stephen Guilbeault, Dominic LeBlanc, Anita Anand,
Johnny Wilkinson.
Jolie. What's that?
Jonathan Wilkinson.
Mark Miller. This is why they're
all
writing
knocking
new.
around, and they're all delighted. They've all got smiles on their faces. They're all still in the party. Quite a lot of them are still in Parliament as well. They're not upset about this, really, are they?
And the mainstream media that lives off our taxpayer dollars is more than willing to trot out new and improved on the side of the Tide box. More than willing to slap the label new and improved. But we have yet to see new and improved. Here's Doug with another moment of truth. Doug Ford on MOUs. Let's listen in to Doug on MOUs. Why doesn't he say this straight to Carney's face? Listen in, Doug.
To get something done by the end of this May. Like, we all have MOUs. We've signed MOUs, right? But that's just a piece of paper. Let's get a binding agreement to start moving. Either, you're in or you're out. Well, let's start moving.
How broad? Like, what kind of an agreement are you talking about?
Just a binding agreement rather than just an MOU. These are official. We put everything to the side and opened up Ontario for everyone. There's still a little bit of protectionism within to get something done by the end of this May. Like, we all have MOUs. We've signed MOUs, right?
That's good.
But that's
repeating in there. There you go. Carney and them trot out the MOUs like they were gold. Like, because there's not really any deals. Like, they talk how they have 7 deals. I don't even know how many deals they talk about. They're all MOUs. Where's the deal? Where's an actual deal that you can dissect? I've yet to see one.
It's so dishonest, isn't it, that Carney and his apologists and fellow travellers keep referring to all of these MOUs, and sometimes they're not even MOUs, they're literally nothing more than a press release. They keep referring to them as deals. You know, it's... No, not really. You can't get away with that. You can't pretend that we've gone and signed all these excellent trade deals around the world. Or with Alberta, with this MOU. You can't pretend like those are binding agreements, as Dougie recognizes.
Thank you to Boy for the contribution to independent media. We appreciate that. But the MOUs mean nothing, but they trot them out like they mean something. The Australian one is case in point. And they bragged about that one, talking about billions in trade deals. And it says, we'll look at investing in Canada if these certain factors exist. None of them exist right now. So, you know what I mean? They haven't done anything to change the climate. The investment climate in Canada is still uncertain. That's a nice way of saying it, that, when you hear that, like, you want to invest billions of dollars in an uncertain climate? The answer is a hard no. But here we go again. Here's Mark Carney again. Listen to this. Look at this clip here. We don't need to play it, but because it's like 7 seconds. And it's like, me and Susan Holt sat down to get shovels in the ground. If you had a deal, you'd be talking about it. You're going to move faster on major projects. Which projects?
The project of our imagination, Jim. That sit down with Howard Lutnick. I don't generally think much of Howard Lutnick, I must admit, but he did say something quite intelligent, surprisingly, for him, where he was basically saying that he likes to, or he wants to, frame the shovels of the projects that they've been involved with, and he was sort of emphasizing how it's not real until the shovel's in the ground, kind of thing. And that's what we're like. It's all about that. It's all about getting the shovel in the ground. And that's what we should celebrate. So Howard Lutnick, in theory, is sat there with like hundreds of shovels framed on his wall. And we have Mark Carney here and various premiers of BC talking about shovels, but they're just shovels of the imagination. Where are these shovels? Like, they're not real, are they? They're just ideas.
Yeah, they're going to need more shovels because the BS in the room is so deep that it's hard to walk around. It's getting tough because as far as photo ops go, the Liberals kill on photo ops. Like, they're absolutely the best at photo ops and bullshit and all that stuff. Thank you, Droid Tech, for the support. This is what the mainstream media should be doing, this job. And I guess they leave space for us because they don't want to do their damn job. They don't want to do their job. They just want to support this media so they can grift. Yet, more people watching the really big show. If all of Canada watched this, Mark Carney and the Liberals don't survive because they can't see the light of day. Because there's no way, if Wayne there, with his neck all tied up there, and Conor McGregor, if he said, Vassy had a good question. What Canadians are seeing this as most affordable in a decade? And then Wayne stumbles along. She should have just paused and said, listen, Wayne, just answer the damn question. Canadians don't see this as more affordable. Can you point to anybody other than yourself that sees this as most affordable in a decade? But Wayne goes on. She lets him talk and just start talking points. He just spins and spins and spins and talks about COVID and all kinds of excuses, and she just lets it go.
She's very polite, isn't she? I would say that's maybe her undoing. But he was incapable, wasn't he, old Wayne there? He couldn't resort to hauteur because he literally couldn't lift his chin up to look down on people. he was trying, but
I mean, I would have asked right away. I would have said, Conor McGregor, is he like, what line is he on with the Oilers right now? Here's one, the National Post putting on the Liberals plan to silence the House of Commons. I mean, there are some people putting out stuff. There was the Spectator put out a piece too. Mark Carney circumventing democracy. Again, coming from outside the nation.
Yeah, although I think the writer, I think she is Canadian, although I'm not 100% on that. But yeah, a British magazine put that out. And the headline was something like, does Mark Carney believe in democracy? And this is the kind of thing I get on about when I talk about Canada's reputation overseas not being what maybe a lot of a lot of people think it is. It's not. Like, a lot of people look at Canada as a kind of a fable, like how things can go wrong, something to learn from. That's just another example of that.
This is important. I mean, this is Pierre Poilievre's video. We're not going to play it, though. This is Pierre Poilievre's video. This is a key point that most media will miss. Mark Carney's comments are off on his video. Same video, like a day apart videos, right? You go on Pierre Poilievre's, you can comment. You can comment on here too. CBC turns their comments off too. We leave them on. You have your say. You're important. Pierre Poilievre leaves his comments on. Mark Carney doesn't want to hear from you. Why? Because what he says is a bunch of untruth. If he was authentic and true and didn't change, flip around, I mean, we call flip-flop forward. But Mark Carney, it's alternate realities, and you don't know which one you woke up with today. Because yesterday the video, or sorry, it was Sunday, the video comes out, talks about a more dangerous and divided world and how we shouldn't rely on the Americans. And then today he comes out and says we have the best trade deal ever. What are you supposed to take from that? And the auto sector, again, is one of the most important sectors here in Canada. And here's from a committee here, Vincent Ho on the auto sector. Listen in.
Has the government ever consulted you or your office about the privacy concerns related to Chinese-made EVs specifically?
No, I've not been consulted on this specific file.
So in your opinion, do you think the Canadian public, the average Canadian, is sufficiently informed about the scope of the data being collected by these connected vehicles and where that data is ultimately stored?
I would say at a very high level, I would say the answer is no. I think generally speaking, I find that the consent and the information sharing for Canadians in terms of their privacy in many cases could be stronger. That's a key part of our work in Canada and with international partners. We're trying to always encourage clearer, easier to understand consent policies. We were in the Supreme Court with Facebook recently on that issue about how consent should be obtained and how transparency is done. I talked about my investigation of TikTok, and that's an area where, again, we found it wasn't transparent enough. The fact that the data was going to China could be accessed by the Chinese government. We asked this to be reinforced. So we're going to continue to push to make it easier for Canadians to have that awareness.
So have you
That's good.
worked with
I mean, there's lots of concerns, and this is auto executives yesterday in that cabinet there. Warn cabinet, concessions to Chinese automakers undermine Canadian jobs. We've said it here many, many times. Cabinet on March 11th granted Chinese battery electric cars low tariff access to the Canadian market with an initial quota of 49,000 vehicles, and that's rising 6.5% annually after that. BYD talks about, I think it was like 25 dealerships are going to open across Canada. We've seen what they've done in other places. Brazil, go read the stories in Brazil, what happened to the auto sector there in Brazil. And the auto manufacturers let you know, too, what's going to happen. If you allow the Chinese automakers here, it's going to be devastating for the legacy automakers in China. I'm sorry, the Japanese automakers, too. Nobody wants them here. And Japan sells, 80% of their vehicles that they manufacture here in Canada to the United States.
And remember, this was a quid pro quo, wasn't it? They lifted their tariffs on various canola products and so on, agricultural products, and we did this, which means that 49,000 vehicles rising by 6.5% every year, or maybe not if the Chinese say, do you know what, we're going to slap on a pretty beefy tariff again on your agricultural produce. However, there might be a way that we could avert that if you take in 150,000 EV. It's talk about your relationship with a country being a weakness. Look no further than this. I mean, how obvious is that? Yeah,
Brian Kingston, CEO of Canadian Vehicle Manufacturers Association, he represents Ford and GM, said that Chinese automakers pay as little as $3 an hour compared to $44 here in Canada. Chinese manufacturers have a cost advantage due to weak and non-existent labor rights that have suppressed wages and artificially lowered the cost of their production. We saw the same thing with BC Ferries. David Eby chose, or allowed BC Ferries to choose China to build the ferries for British Columbia. One of the factors was cost. And companies like C-SPAN, how do you compete when they even have human rights violations of their labor, or pay $3 an hour or less, or even get it for free, don't have an industrial carbon tax, and you use inferior steel and aluminum? How are you supposed to compete when they say one of the prime factors is price? So what does that say to the Canadian worker? That you're going to need to come down to $3 an hour so you can compete, or what's the answer?
I'm just struggling to understand how China, the People's Republic of China, no less, which had a glorious communist revolution in 1949, the workers took charge, the proletariat, and the farmers took control of China. And yet Chinese workers have no labor rights, we read. What's going on there? I thought if the state owned everything and directed everything and you had a mad socialist government, then the workers would be in paradise. Isn't that what we hear from the NDP and the Green Party all the time?
Well, have you not?
There's something going on there, isn't there, in China?
Have you not been to the prosperous Cuba recently? Where the average working person, I had a friend working in one of the nickel mine there, the Canadian nickel mine there, and he was working in the accounting department. They literally paid the staff chickens, like an actually live chicken. That's what you paid them with. That's how little you had to pay them. You just gave them a chicken.
Store of value.
Yeah, a chicken. Here you go. Thanks for the work.
Immune to inflation.
You think they could do you think you could get away with that at Highland Copper here in BC? Just like the guy's slaving away all day, and he shows up for his paycheck, and here you go, you give him a chicken, say on your way.
I don't know, if it was half of a steak, then you would be like, oh yeah, okay, sure, if you're willing, boss.
Here's CBC starting to carry the water to promote China. Listen, I usually like Andrew Chang, but like, come on, Andrew. You got to feel a little messy on this one. Let's listen in here.
We have seen China take some diplomatic measures in order to end this conflict. We have seen China attempt to assist in maybe some of the ceasefire negotiations.
Except, here's the China paradox, that as wounded by the war as it is, China also sees a window of opportunity, an opening that taps into a long-term strategic ambition, if only it can weather the storm before it. The simplest way to put this is that China sees a chance to become the new global grown-up in the room.
So you see Beijing always trying to drive wedges between the US and its allies in Europe and Asia alike as a key priority of foreign policy. So the fact that Washington is driving those wedges itself, China doesn't even have to do the work. I mean, that's a huge benefit for Beijing.
Consider how Trump and his Secretary of War talk about putting American troops in harm's way. Billions of dollars in ships, planes, and munitions on the line.
We have the strongest military in the world by far.
To date, we've struck over 7,000 targets across Iran and its military infrastructure. The United States military controls the fate of that country.
Our armed forces have been extraordinary. There's never been anything like it militarily.
That's good. I want you to go back and play the beginning of the clip, though. Just the beginning. Play it one more time, and I'll tell you where to pause, okay?
We have seen China take some diplomatic measures in order to end this conflict. We have seen China attempt to assist in maybe some of the ceasefire negotiations.
Except, here's the China paradox, that as wounded by the war as it is, China also sees a window of opportunity, an opening that taps into a long-term strategic ambition, if only it can weather the storm before it.
That's it right there. You know, oh, you just had it there. Just go back, like play it if you can get right there, and just let 1 second go. 1 second, go. Play. Stop. There we go. What is that?
Did you see, by the way, did you see that our video, I think yesterday's live video, which had the words New World Order in it, had a YouTube attached a little disclaimer, like a little warning, saying,
Nice.
New World Order is a phrase used by conspiracy theorists.
Nice.
How funny
Now-
is that? Here it is on CBC. Mark Carney's knocking it out every other day.
Let's
But
play Mark
YouTube-
Carney's New World Order now. Let's play it here because I put it there. So you can play that. So how are we in lockstep with China in the New World Order? How did we get here? Play it. Play that clip there.
New World Order.
A new world order.
Would say a new world order. Sets us up well for the new world order.
New world order. It's the worst.
That's good. So China, New World Order. CBC pumping, New World Order. Andrew Chang, what are you doing? New World Order.
It's just trolling, isn't it? I think I look at it as a kind of elaborate troll. They're trying to troll people who've used that term in the past. You
Okay.
know, they're saying like, no, we're going to use it, and there's nothing you can do about it. And if you even reference us using it, YouTube will slap this sticker on your videos saying that, you know, basically
Yeah.
saying that you're a
Why,
conspiracy theorist.
why would they do it? Because those words, New World Order, why all of a sudden is that a bad thing? Carney says it all the time. Diana says it all the time. Now
Klaus
we're not
Schwab
allowed to
says
say
it. New World Order.
Ursula von der Leyen says it. I'm going to set you up for this, and don't put it up yet. This is like you think you've been punched in the face before or punched in the gut. This is the ultimate gut punch, face punch, or maybe they rub your nose in a bucket of pee or something. But let's look at this. Chrystia Freeland got a democracy award. Can you believe it? She went to the United States and they gave her a democracy award. Grateful to be in New York Friday and honored to receive the Hero of Democracy Award from A New Democracy. Can you believe that?
I mean, yeah, I can, because this is the sort of thing that these stupid organizations do. They
She
give
literally-
awards to the people who've achieved the exact opposite of what they're being praised for achieving.
She violated
Chrystia Freeland's contribution to democracy is eroding it in Canada.
She violated
Now
the
she's
Charter of
got the award.
Rights by being part of invoking the Emergencies Act, which 2 courts have already struck down. She also froze bank accounts. She wrote she wanted these people that were asking for parlay to label them as literally terrorists for honking their horns and parking violations. She wanted them labeled as terrorists. This lady just got a Hero of Democracy. This is the Democrats and the Liberals applauding themselves. Heroes of democracy. That's what they say to you. It's spit in your face, absolutely. It is absolutely just, they don't care. They don't care. You mean nothing to them. And this, they trotted out there, and then she's going to get lauded on CBC and that about this hero of democracy. Have they drained the bank accounts? $22.5 billion has gone to Ukraine with no oversight. 50 some odd billion dollars she spent on green schemes with like no accountability. She's
But
a
this kind of
hero.
thing is not unusual. If we've got any people here listening, watching, whatever, who lived behind the Iron Curtain, who lived in Soviet countries back in the day, this will be very familiar, because, or even China nowadays, they give themselves titles and awards and things like that, which are the direct opposite of what they do. Like in China, we were just talking about how they have no labor rights, how they abuse their poorly paid workers and all the rest of it. they will congratulate each other, and the senior political figures will congratulate each other as like great defenders of the worker and stuff like that. Just like the precise opposite of what is true, the exact perfect opposite. And now we see that happening here in the West, and some pretty serious historians and commentators have pointed that out, that the Western world now, and it's this late stage hyperliberalism or whatever it is that we're in, it's starting to resemble the Soviet Union in a lot of ways. And this is one of them, where there's just this parallel reality where somebody like Chrystia Freeland, whose career represents a grave bit of damage done to Canadian democracy, she's given an award praising her for a heroic contribution to democracy. This is just madness. You know, this is like Soviet Union style madness.
She's part of it too, as well as the freedom of the press in Canada has been stifled, corrupted, crippled. The Online News Act blocks, the only G7 nation that blocks news from going on Meta, Facebook and Instagram, where that's how we made our money. And they took it away, and close to 100 outlets have failed since the introduction of the Online News Act, independent outlets. Well, they fed the select few and provided access to the select few. The Liberals won't even answer emails. That's the heroes of democracy. Chrystia Freeland, she won't even do shows on, like, interviews on friendly media, like the selected media. She goes down to the United States and is in front of all does all these powder puff interviews with these basically democratic media machines. She goes and does shows with them, but doesn't even trust the government crippled media here in Canada. Have some courage, hero of democracy, and come on with me and Ian. Show that you are a hero of democracy.
Yeah, that'll happen, won't it? We really would be in an alternate reality if that happened.
Well, Canada Post. We're going to move on to some other stuff. Canada Post, bleeding from 2018 to 25, recorded over $6.1 billion in losses. And last year, $1.57 billion in losses. And nobody's even using the service. 70% decline in letter mails. You can put that up as full screen, please. 70% decline in letter mail. 3.6 increase in addresses since peak. Parcels fell. It's just a mess, right? It's an absolute mess. It's an absolute mess, but they're going to cut. Here they are, they're going to cut, because they say they're going to cut. Post office cut 30,000 jobs. You think, oh, finally, the federal government's got some courage to do something. You can put up the next one there. Canada Post said it will cut through, how are they going to cut? Through attrition. They're not going to cut, right? They're just going to let people slowly go away.
And they're not going to hire people that they need, presumably, so they're going to end up being less efficient.
Yeah.
But you're saying nobody ever uses Canada Post. Like, I went to check my mailbox for the first time in about a week yesterday.
Full of flyers?
Just, as usual, it was full of, like, Canadian Tire, all those flyers and everything.
And
then the one thing that wasn't that was from my beloved Liberal MP. And it was this little piece of, like, it was basically just a campaign material. And I just said, this is how we're fixing the affordability crisis. And it was like, childcare, up to this many $1,000s a year. Child benefit, this many thousand. It was just like basically listing the reasons why you should vote Liberal so that you can get bribes in exchange. It's just like, okay, that's Canada Post then.
So yeah, no courage. They're not going to cut. They're just going to wait for attrition. So we can just continue to pay for this monstrous machine that does nothing. There you go.
But we need to know. We need to know when there's a deal on at Canadian Tire, don't we? So that's the purpose it serves now, I think.
You can also go online.
But it's not the same intimate relationship with Canadian Tire then, is it?
I don't know. I don't go to the post. I don't think I've been to the post office. Obviously, my wife goes there, but I don't think I've been to the super box in, I don't know, tens of years. I might not even be able to find it.
Get out of the house. It's a nice walk.
Another one from Holly Donald Blacklock's Feds erase anti-black record. The Canadian Human Rights Commission in a report to the United Nations said it's upset by anti-black bigotry. The federal agency made no mention of mistreating its own black employees, prompting censure by the Treasury Board and a public apology by the Chief Commissioner. It faulted the Canadian police, the courts, and federal prison system for mistreating black people. There needs to be a swift and complete overhaul of the Commission's senior management. Our black members and our Canadian public have lost confidence in the Commissioner. The trust cannot be re-earned, while our senior leadership that contributed to and enabled and sought to conceal anti-black racism at the Commission remains at the helm. I have a suggestion here. If we're talking about racism and all that, didn't our general hand grenade there just recently say that her organization is full of racism? How come she gets to stay at the helm? Shouldn't she resign? When she cried there and said that the military is full of racism? How come this guy has to resign when she doesn't have to resign?
That never seems to make sense, does it?
It's
also here talking about 9 black employees documented cases where they were denied promotions or tokenized in the workplace.
Well,
isn't this tokenization? I mean, this is kind of a token. This whole, we are so angry about anti-black bigotry literally with a capital B. Is that not tokenized? Is that not tokenization? I mean,
didn't we just see an example of that with that deputy in the military, where she hired her husband's cousin because he was capital B black, and
that made it to the Globe and Mail. Yeah.
Unqualified, and not even just as an employee, as a manager. Is that tokenization? What is that?
But I guess it's just not the right kind of tokenization. It's got to be done in the right way.
Well, here you go, because there'd be lots of screaming likely about that pipeline. Imagine being in the room when the Liberals got word that Trump authorized the pipeline south, because that took away some of their bargaining power for CCUS. And now Ottawa leans towards new pipeline route from Alberta to southern BC, running right alongside the Trans Mountain, because they don't have the courage to do the one in the north. That's the one that Danielle Smith wants.
Because, as it says here, it would face environmental hurdles and resistance from Indigenous groups.
Right.
Even though Prince Rupert is, I learned recently, the deepest port in North America, which is quite an amazing fact, isn't it? Which is very important. That's not just like a random geographical factoid. That means that you can send in the VLCCs, I think they call them, very large crude carriers, like enormous crude tanker things that take like 2 million barrels of oil or something like that. You can send them to Prince Rupert, but you can't send them to Vancouver. They have to leave Vancouver, like in some cases, like half empty, because it's not deep enough.
They're talking about dredging.
Not only
right?
that, but Prince Rupert is quite dozens of hours. I think it's like more than a day and a half or something, less travel time to get to Asia. And time is money, don't you know? But obviously, yeah, let's take it to Vancouver because we wouldn't want resistance from Indigenous groups.
Yeah, we're going to build faster and build bigger than ever before. When clearly, Mark Carney doesn't want to exercise the rights of the Canadian government to build projects.
But can you imagine, like, we've been told for so long now that we're at war and like an existential conflict. Can you imagine if in the 1940s, when we were trying to fight the Japanese and the Germans, it was like, all right, so we need fuel to win this war, something like that. Let's get some fuel from this part of Canada. And then Indigenous groups said, oh, I'm not sure about that. Do you think they would say, right, okay then, scrap that. we'll figure something else out. No, obviously not, because then how could you possibly be a serious government in that situation, telling your people that you're at war? And this is a really like delicate moment in Canada's history, and we got to fight for our survival. How could you say that on the one hand, and then on the other hand say, oh no, this group of people doesn't want us to build a pipeline here, so we're not going to do that? They don't work together. You know, they again, it's like, it feels like reality has been distorted.
And then again, if you read the last sentence in there, the newspaper, it says that Alberta side believes Ottawa will designate the pipeline project for national importance in the fall. Why not today? What's wrong with today? Start building, it makes sense to build another one along the TMX, it's already there. But also build one to the north, also build one to the south, just build one wherever, everywhere. Get energy to market.
They're arguing about the carbon tax price and the CCUS, the carbon capture boondoggle that they want to decarbonize the oil, whatever the hell that means. That's probably what it boils down to, because Alberta's been put in this position where they have to submit the plan, but that plan needs to include all that stuff about the carbon price and the carbon capture mechanism, carbon capture factory. And obviously the oil companies who would ultimately have to pay for all this stuff don't want to do either of those things. They don't want to be punished by their own government for producing energy, for making the country rich. They don't want to be punished for that. And obviously they also don't want to drop $20 billion on some pointless piece of garbage to capture carbon from the air.
Taxation scheme. Put up this next chart full screen, please. Yeah, full screen though. Leave it up there for a second. What do you see there?
A lot of oil.
Imagine if you overlaid that over many other countries. You're not going to see that. And it's Alberta that is rich, right? But it's the rest of Canada, British Columbia and Ontario and Quebec really deciding what Alberta can and can't do with its vast riches, isn't it?
Well, the parts that decide are the parts that have literally no dots. I mean, there's a couple of dots there in the St. Lawrence that I can see, but that's about it, isn't it?
Imagine you're the person that brings home the money. You bring home the bacon, and you have little say in how you work and how you operate and how much you get to keep of the bacon.
And you also have to feel bad about eating bacon, which is actually a very truthful analogy, because people do try and make you feel bad about eating bacon, don't they, these days?
Just clownish.
It's so sad, though, isn't it? I mean, it can lead one into despair. It's also this whole bloody thing's about sovereignty, isn't it? Apparently, that's certainly how the Liberals portray it. It's all about sovereignty. What kind of a sovereign country can't build a bloody pipeline? A tiny, thin little strip.
We're not even at the building part.
Across their country. How are you sovereign if you can't even do that?
We're not even at the building part. We can't even decide if we're going to build a pipeline or not. We can't even decide if we're going to build a pipeline or not. Yes, no, maybe so, right? Yes, no, maybe so. No, we can't even decide.
But this is what I mean. It's like all this chat about sovereignty before you even talk about things like, the military and how we can't even defend the country, which you would think that was kind of that nullified your claim to sovereignty. But this sort of thing, what would John Locke say? I'm sure somebody watching knows what I mean when I say John Locke. But it's like John Locke associated that development of the land with ownership of the land, sovereignty. He did it in the North American context. If we can't build and develop the land, do we actually own it? Is it actually sovereign? Is that actually Canadian land? I don't know. I mean, you read government press releases and you see things like Canada and X First Nation agree a deal. That sort of suggests that maybe it's not sovereign. If Canada negotiates on equal terms with a nation about something to do with infrastructure or whatever, I mean, is that actually sovereignty? That's a very important question, I think.
Well, a sovereign nation needs a military too, and we've neglected our military, underfunded, underpaid, undermanned, under-equipped, and underappreciated. There's a lot of unders there, a lot of unders. And it's just, can we have something that makes common sense? Is there one cabinet minister that can actually make common sense? Now we're going to go down to David McGuinty there. We played this clip yesterday, but we're going to do a whole segment on their military here. Listen to McGuinty again. Look at the awkwardness of this. Watch this clip again.
Hey, have you heard the news? The Canadian Armed Forces just hit the highest recruitment in 30 years. Applications have more than doubled to over 45,000. 70 of 97 critical roles filled. Last year was just 18. And you know what? We're just getting started.
You had 11 years to get started. 11 years. Here's something in committee and how they're getting these recruits. Listen to this.
I'm hearing that at St. Jean right now, where we do all of our basic training, that there is a large number that are either voluntarily withdrawing or have failed to meet the standards. Some of them even on language. Some of the PRs are not functional in either French and or English. So based upon that, we're hearing that there's temporary shelters being built to house them. I thought that all of our forces that or all those that have gone through basic training or are in basic training, whether they voluntarily withdraw or not, that they're paid to go home, not to be stored up in temporary housing like tents. And I'm hearing up to 13 units being built to house those that have not gotten through basic training. I'm hearing that at St. Jean.
What kind of scam is that? Is that another way to get into the country, or what's the deal there?
Possibly, because there are quite a lot of countries around the world that have laws on the books that criminalize you if you join another country's military, or they can punish you in various ways if they find out that you've joined another country's military. So maybe, because we already know, like from when we were looking at the BBC documentary, how they pretend to be gay, or they post comments on social media attacking Muhammad, the founder of Islam. They do certain things that will make them pariahs back home, so that therefore Canada has no choice, or Britain has no choice but to accept them as refugees. So maybe now they can say, like, look, I tried to join the military though. Like, if I go home now, they'll put me in jail for that. I don't know. You might be onto something.
Well, here's another thing. We put this next to the story we did just recently, where the military members, the enlisted, there's not enough housing, they're living in their cars or couch surfing. Yeah, we're going to build camps for people that wash out. So people that wash out of the military are going to get housing. The ones that are in the military can go sleep in your car. Does it make sense? And here's the lady here at the Department of National Defense. She's the deputy that hired her husband's cousin, who was capital B Black, and gave him a manager's job, refuses to resign or even apologize for that matter. Listen to her.
Our department made changes to the screening process for permanent residents, significantly increasing recruitment in this population. This was reflected in the report, which showed that over a 6-month period, 763 permanent residents were recruited, compared to a 30-month period previously in which only 177 recruitments were achieved.
So they chase a number, and I'm going to give you an example how when you chase a number and not reality, when you chase a number. If you ever worked out, and some people say you got to do 10 reps on something, and if you just like try to swing and do it really crazy, and it's no benefit to you, you may actually injure yourself, but you got 10 done because it was just like you're doing it all wrong. It's the same thing. They're chasing numbers, so they lower standards, and then the result of that is that they wash out. So, but they get to report the number. We've had all these recruits, but most of them are washing out, and then we have to house them. But they're going to stand there and promote the number that says, our recruit's McGuinty. Listen to McGuinty again. Let's play a clip from McGuinty again. Play that first one again, one more time. Listen to McGuinty now. I hear a lot of rumbling there. The minions are working.
The hobbits.
Isn't it just back there?
Hey, have you heard the news? The Canadian Armed Forces just hit the highest recruitment in 30 years.
That's good enough. That's all we needed. Right? Now, if you look at this, they're washing out. We're housing them. And they changed the numbers on how you get them in. So 763 permanent residents were recruited compared to just 177. So these aren't Canadians that they're permanent residents. They're not Canadian citizens. They're PRs that you convince to join the military because maybe that leads to citizenship faster. Like, what is the scheme here? What's the scam?
Or refugee status.
Yeah.
Because I did a quick Google and I had a look at the country that sends the most immigrants to Canada, India. And according to Chapter 4, Section 121130 of the Indian Penal Code, if you join another army as an Indian citizen, the army of another country, you can be punished with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 7 years. And you may also be liable to a fine and forfeiture of any property used or intended to be used in committing such depredation. So, yeah, if you're an Indian citizen and you want to guarantee yourself asylum in Canada, that might actually be the trick. If you join the Canadian Army, fail, and then say, all right, look, I'll go to jail now if I go back to India, so sort me out, will you?
So here's Holly Donald Blacklock's doing a little bit more on this. Enlistment up in the Canadian Armed Forces, according to figures from McGinty. The recruiters noted it still takes more than 4 months to process an application to join the Army, Navy, or Royal Canadian Air Force. 4 months. We only have 400,000 government employees. It must be tough to find somebody that can actually fill out forms. A total of 7,300 new recruits were accepted last year. About 5,900 exited regular forces, resigned, retired, or discharged. So not much net gain there. And we've set a standard of 71,500 for the regular forces. It used to be like 55,000. They couldn't fail that compliment. I mean, 71,500 for regular forces. That's basically, I think small countries like Luxembourg could probably kick our ass. The American military is like 1.4 million or something. Like, that's a very small, and we couldn't even fill it for years. Again, underfunded, underpaid, undermanned, underequipped. We have to commercial. We have to hitch rides to get to like when they're doing war games and stuff like that. We hitch rides from either America or hire commercial planes to get our troops to where they need to go. We couldn't even buy decent sleeping bags.
I really cannot believe that they've tried to find a way to celebrate this. Even to this point here, what McGinty said, if this keeps up, we'll achieve our target earlier than 2029.
And the target is 71,500.
A completely inadequate force of 70,000 people by 2029, or even earlier than 2029. And we might be able to defend half of Baffin Island at that point.
Do you know what?
Talk about sovereignty, lads.
If you can't meet the standard, the bar of standards, lower the bar.
And even then, they can't achieve anything to write home about. How is this anything to celebrate? I'm sorry, 70,000 people. 70,000 people is... How long does it take for 70,000 people to be killed or wounded on the Russia-Ukraine front? A few weeks or something like that? Like, what the hell is this? What the hell is this force? Are you honestly trying to be taken seriously with 70,000 people in your military? Like,
we don't have 70 though. That's the goal.
Well, even that, yeah, I know we don't, but I'm saying like that's the target. It's just such a joke.
But nobody's
How is
asking
that supposed to do anything? What can you do with 70,000 people? You can't even fill like an American football stadium with that many people.
I'm just going to put this out there to Stephen Fuhr, if you're listening. Maybe just get Ian and I to consult for the military, because you got a problem there. You can't get Canadian citizens to join the military. So you're getting PR, permanent residents, to join. because you can't get Canadian citizens to join. Why? Why do you think that is? That's the question that needs to be asked. Why will people not join the Canadian military? Why has it been undermanned for so long? That's the question that needs to be answered. Could it be that General Hand Grenade there is crying and says the troops are full? Why not put somebody there that commands respect? Why not put a leader in there? People will join a leader, a real leader. That's part of your problem. And then also equip them. Like, I mean, they watch videos. They look at, if you look at the American military videos, and then you ask yourself why we do videos that are close-ups of like guns and that. That's the question that needs to be asked.
The front of a tank.
Yeah.
A very specific angle.
Muzzle.
Yeah. I would love to pull back the camera and find out that it's literally like dismembered. It's just a part or something.
Just clownish. Absolutely clownish. And then McGuinty stands up there and does that fake thing. Oh, hey, hello. Things are great.
Oh, I was just reviewing these excellent numbers.
Welcome to the clown show. Another one from Holly Rowan Blacklocks. A federal judge. You should subscribe to Blacklocks, by the way. Some of the best journalism in Canada. A federal judge dismissed an attempt by 2 ArriveCAN executives to challenge an internal report alleged wrongdoing. The 2 former CBSA agency managers, Antonio Utano and Cameron McDonald, were ordered to pay a combined $41,709 in costs. And that was for this ArriveScam app that went from a budget of $6.3 million and was over budget by $59.5 million. How much of that is paid back? Yeah, almost nothing. Two suppliers were given a lifetime ban. Ooh. You stole $59 million. You're banned from federal contracting. And then they said, do we just rename like SNC Lavalin to Alto? Is that how we do it? Like, I'm not sure. Can you just help us with that? How do you do that? How do you do that? How do you do it? $60 million is an estimate, is that correct? And did Canadians get value for the money? That was Barrett asking that, MP Barrett. The public service did not ensure Canada received value for money. That was from the auditor. I would tell you we paid too much for this. Well, thanks a lot, Captain Obvious. Hey, thank you for that. Okay, all the climate ready? All the climate people get ready for John Stossel. This is your moment in the sun. Get ready for Greta Thunberg. Here comes the thunder. Bring the thunder, Greta.
This environmental catastrophe bearing down on us.
I keep hearing that we're killing the earth.
How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood.
But wait, I've been a consumer reporter for years. I've covered so many scares. Plague, famine, and perpetual war will kill us. We're going to run out of oil. Nuclear power will give us cancer. Killer bees swarm ever closer. Bird flu, flesh-eating bacteria. The list of terrible things that were going to get us is long. And yet we're living longer than ever. None of those scares turned out to be as frightening as the warnings. But I'm told global warming is different.
Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction.
The alarmists have evidence that supports their fears. Temperature is rising. The UN predicts that it'll rise another 2 to 5 degrees.
What do we do when the land we live on is under attack?
But does that justify the fear?
Climate change is not a lie, so please don't let our planet die.
Does it justify this claim?
We have 12 years to act.
We have 12 years.
We have 12 years before the effects are irreversible.
Really? 12 years?
It's warmed up around 1 degree Celsius since 1900, and life expectancy doubled the industrialized democracies, and yet that temperature ticks up another half a degree, and the entire system crashes. That's the most absurd belief.
I recently moderated this debate on climate change at the Heartland Institute. Well, not a debate, because the alarmists who were invited didn't show. Heartland invited many.
please come over here and sit next to that place and let's have a discussion. There are a lot more people want to hear what you have to say.
Climate alarmists never agree to debate.
We'd love to offer you the airtime. We will give it to you. I'll give you a special phone.
Good. We were supposed to have Lois on from the Heartland. She's runs Heartland. And somehow we got our wires crossed, and then we never ended up getting her on. How dare you? Hey, how dare you? Everybody's got to love Greta.
You have stolen my dreams. I mean, I can't believe anyone ever went along with that. I must say, I'm quite proud to say that that had zero effect on me all along. Now people pretend like, oh, I was never taken in by that.
CNN.
Like I never went along with the Greta train. It's like, you did though, didn't you? Or like, in many cases, people did go along with that. It was quite clear to me right away, and a lot of people that I knew as well, that she was a very unsettled, unhappy, strange child that had been coached to say things. And she also says, you've stolen my childhood. Well, her childhood, we now know what her childhood would have been, which is getting on boats and trying to sail to Gaza and jumping around with a keffier on, talking about death to Israel and stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what kind of childhood that would have been, Greta. It's not a very good adulthood, so I don't think the childhood would have been that good.
CNN ran her endlessly. CNN also brought her in as a COVID expert, if you can believe that. She was a climate expert and a scientist. You know, the science is in. Believe the science.
She was still in the market for a second act, wasn't she? COVID looked like it might be that second act, but we now know that it's Israel.
I was going to put this piece on Mark Carney with UBI. They're already talking about UBI, more government control, but I won't bore you with that. We're going to move on to David Eby. David Eby's, he's got to be in his final swan song as he's opened Pandora's box. He's opened the box and he's let the genie out of the box, and he has no idea how to put it back in, and it's out of control for him. We've interviewed Jeff Moyse. I don't know, 4 or 5 times now we've had Jeff Moyse on, at least. And he got all dressed up for Global, though. Listen to this clip here from Jeff Moyse here.
I have never seen anything like this. Over 6 terms of governments working for the provincial government, I have never seen this level of ineptitude and incompetence.
For more than 30 years, Jeffrey Moyse was legal counsel in the BC Attorney General's office, advising governments on Aboriginal law and treaty matters. He retired in 2022. Moyse says by adopting DRIPA in 2019, essentially layering an untested UN framework over BC's existing laws, MLAs put the province in uncharted territory, in a country where First Nations rights are already enshrined in Section 35 of the Constitution.
There's nowhere else in the world that has done this to itself.
That's Jeff Moyse there. We've had him say that on this show. He doesn't hold back. I mean, he's quite upset with what's going on. And he is, I would say, one of the leading experts, as they would say, on those global and that. A leading expert, 33 years. He's had 30 years in the government and another 3 years in private practice there. And he's helped through 6 different British Columbian governments negotiate treaties here in British Columbia. And he thinks DRIPA and UNDRIP both have to go, not just DRIPA, but UNDRIP as well.
Yeah, well, his argument is that we already have the tools, legal tools necessary to deal with it. We don't need this stuff.
And he said it stops people from negotiating treaties. Like, why would you negotiate a treaty if you're going to use these rules? Here's David Eby here in a scrum. There's some interesting questions in these scrums.
That statement from them on Sunday to launch, what was it, collective resistance? Did that threat cause you to back off? They were talking about what? Blocking roads and railways and buildings?
There is a very real threat to our province and continued conflict with First Nations. That's why our government is committed to finding, if at all possible, collaborative paths forward. We want to move past the court battles, past the blockades, past those issues, And that was what the Declaration Act was all about. We hear from the Conservatives that they are fully comfortable with that division. They're comfortable with those fights. They want to repeal the Declaration Act. They want to pick that fight with First Nations. It is a very different view of the path to prosperity and certainty in this province. For our part, we believe the path forward is together. And today's decision reflects that. I accept the responsibility that we didn't get here immediately. But I believe very, very firmly that if we want this province to be successful, if we want to be prosperous in these challenging times, that we have to do it in partnership with First Nations. And that means wherever possible, staying out of court, reaching solutions outside of court, and sometimes taking the moment to take a step back and work together. And that's what we're doing today.
Thank you. We do have one more clip here before we chat about this here.
There was a threat in that statement from them on Sunday to launch, what was it, collective resistance?
That's a similar type clip. He was asked to, like, we didn't get it right the first time when one of the reporters said, or the fifth time. That was one of the other clips that was there. It's quite the mess here. And Andrew Weaver putting out this here, because David Eby put out a statement. Andrew Weaver, the former leader of the Green Party there, said, our Premier issued so many statements about what he is or is not going to do. Nobody believes him anymore. If you care about BC, you should resign and call an election and with a new leader. Your ideology, dogmatism, and insufferable my way or the highway attitude has turned off so many. And
not a lot of love for Eby, is there, really, these days?
He's running on a run. He's made a mess, like an absolute mess, because he said he was going to suspend and then he backed off. You know what I mean? Like he's made an absolute mess of this, and it's caused a lot of uncertainty in British Columbia for investment. So the investment climate in BC, if you had to sum it up in one word, you would say it's uncertain. That's the most unreliable you can get for when you're talking about investing, even to buying a house. I've heard from people, realtors here locally, and say that, like, people aren't even looking at buying property here in British Columbia until this gets sorted out. But for David Eby,
in the end, though, there are the philosophy or the perspective, the ideology, whatever you want to say, that is the wellspring of these ideas and these, not just ideas, but laws, the real material consequences of it. That's not going away. And it's not going away. And also nobody's even talking about it. And what I mean by that is the idea that a small minority of people in this country has some kind of special claim to the land based on their blood. Blood and soil is the proper name for that phenomenon, as students of the 20th century will know. That idea, if anything, is just getting stronger. It's becoming more pervasive. And nobody, to my knowledge, no serious political figure or figure in the media, has been willing to stand up and say, no, we can't pretend that this country is Turtle Island and that it belongs to Amerindians. So, people who migrated from Siberia to North America between 10 and 30,000 years ago. We cannot pretend any longer that those people have some sort of inalienable right to the land based on DNA tests, based on who their great-great-great-great-grandfather was times 100 or something like that. It's either blood and soil for everyone or blood and soil for no one, isn't it? Surely? You can't really have a country. Do you know what I mean? Talk about sovereignty. You can't really have a country. You can't really have a democracy if the population, 95+% of the population, takes part in an election, votes for something, like an infrastructure project, for example, as has happened recently, and then less than 5% of the population says no, because several thousand years ago, my ancestor was here. Therefore, do a DNA test if you want. You can check my genome. That obviously gives me rights to talk about that. You're not having that pipeline, even though you just elected loads of representatives explicitly to do that, to build that infrastructure. You're just not doing it. Is that democracy? Is that sovereignty? Is that liberalism? as a humble student of history, I would say it's none of those things. So what is it then? You know, it's a little bit peculiar, and it's kind of to give people this, to give a certain like blood tribe, to give one ethnic group a veto and all of these special privileges. It's a little bit weird, and I think, you know, are we going to ask? We're talking about pipelines and things like that. What do the Scottish Canadians think? They represent something like 15% of the Canadian population. A huge blood tribe, a huge ethnic lobby, that, isn't it? The Scottish Canadians. What do the Scots think? Did we get their permission? What about the Hungarians? Are you a member of the Association of the Hungarian Canadians, Jim? Do you approve? Do the Hungarians approve of this infrastructure bill? Do you know what I mean? Surely people now can see how absurd that is. You can't have a country like that, can you? But yet there is one group that has that, you know, makes those claims. Not only makes those claims, but is then satisfied by the state, by institutions, is then given those rights that they claim. I mean, like I say, that it's more like an empire. That's more like the Ottoman Empire and the millet system. I implore people to read about that, or the British Raj or something like that. But it's like the millet system or the Raj, but just for one ethnic group, and every other ethnic group is treated as different. I mean, that just doesn't work, and that's at the absolute core of this. So people like Andrew Weaver, you know, whoever it was that asked that question of David Eby there, David Eby himself, they can chat about this all day long, but the fundamental issue is that, what I've just talked about. And if nobody's willing to touch that, and nobody is, it's never going to be solved.
I had Harman Bangu on here recently because he's the critic for transportation here in British Columbia. One of the biggest things that we have here is lack of road safety, and that a lot of that having to do with truckers not qualified to be on the roadways here in British Columbia. Here's a video here, shocking video actually, as a tow truck's pulled over to the side of the road. Watch this. Well, we don't need the sound. So you're watching the, that's the inside of the cab of the tow truck. And then that is this is in slow, you know, slow-mo as this truck goes over top of the tow truck that has its deck down. And that's the aftermath. You can see the semi laying on the side of the road up ahead there. See it?
Blimey, look at that.
And then the tow truck's roof is caved in.
So frightening, that, isn't it?
They got to do a better job.
The most frightening thing of all with trucks is, and the worst videos is when people are parked. People are like at a red light or something, and the truck just comes, because it's just, what, you can't do anything then, can you? It's like, it takes away your agency. You can't even like turn out, like drive away from the truck or whatever. It's just like,
it's 50
it just
tons.
comes and smashes into your back, and you can't move.
It's 50 tons.
Honestly, the sooner the better that these are all automated. I would say sorry to the truck driver community, but they are very scary.
Doug Ford, flip-flops on his jet. He was all jetting away, but now all of a sudden, listen to Doug here. He said he's listening.
And I guess the topic that we're going to talk about is the plane. And I heard loud and clear, because I'm the only person in the world that gives out a cell number. And I heard loud and clear from the people that this was not the time to purchase a plane. So I've directed the staff, provincial staff, to be in contact, which they are, with Bombardier, sell it immediately and at the same cost. We took possession last week. I immediately sent that message out to the media. I heard from the people, and I'm the premier that listens to the people. If they don't like something, I'm not too shy to change my mind and say, okay, this isn't the time to move on. I also understand the scrutiny. You know, there's no one in this country that is scrutinized more than I am. I'm willing to take that. What kind of really disturbs me is the inconsistency with the media. We have the federal government, rightfully so, and let's put the Prime Minister to the side, that they went out and bought $753 million of jets for the ministers, rightfully so, by the way. We live in a massive country. No word. When it comes to the Quebec, buying $107 million of 3 jets, which I agree. They live in a massive province. No scrutiny. But when I do it, I guess there's a double standard.
I didn't think we even heard about all the jets for the cabinet ministers.
We did talk about it, didn't we? Because it was Bombardier, and there was a big. They were so excited about it. You know, they were talking about it was the greatest thing in the world, weren't they? But yeah, there was no follow up. Whereas with Dougie, it was all like exposing how he claims to care about, you know, bringing costs down for the taxpayer or something, and then he gets this jet. Like, he's noticed something that we discuss quite a lot, which is that the Liberal Party is protected by the media.
And he says he's the most. I would want to correct Doug. He said he's the most scrutinized in Canada. I would say Pierre Poilievre likely gets a lot more than you do, Mr. Ford.
The guy that you hate, Doug.
No. Scott Moe is congratulating Alberta now. So it's Alberta, Saskatchewan, and BC now going to keep the time. Not going to do the daylight savings time anymore. But Scott forgets to add BC in there. Probably still got a little bit of axe to grind there with EB there, right? As Alberta now is going to daylight, be on daylight savings times year round.
But that's not happened yet. And I don't think there's any suggestion that's going to happen in Ontario or anywhere like that. So, I mean, are they all just going to slowly sign up to this or what? Or is it just going to be the Western provinces?
Trump, a little bit international. Trump said he expects a deal with Iran. We've heard this, though. He's said this many times, right? So, deal, no deal. Deal, no deal. And he said the negotiations are progressing. We've heard that lots. No sense playing that clip. Says strong negotiating position. They don't have much left there for sure, you know. But they did board a ship and they did poke a hole through the side of it. And that ship was carrying cargo that could make more missiles. And that he said he was disappointed with Xi on that one. You can play that clip there.
And end up with a great deal. I think they have no choice. We've taken out their Navy.
What's the next one?
It'll hurt that military.
That's okay. We won't play it. Anyway, it says that they boarded that ship and seized that ship. But the story we wanted to get to in international news is Keir Starmer. This one here here's how, you know, like something doesn't age well. Keir Starmer put out this tweet in 2022 and said, "The party's over, Boris. Resign." Susan Hall returning the favor. Party's over. Keir, resign. A lot of pushing on Keir Starmer right now. A lot of pushing. We've got a little clip here from Zara Sultana. Sultana. Take it away, Zara.
And that was a decision that was taken by FCDO.
Zara Sultana.
Speaker, in September, the Prime Minister stood at this dispatch box and told the House he had full confidence in Peter Mandelson, a man whose relationship with convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein was public knowledge. The Prime Minister knew and backed him anyway. Now he claims he had no idea that this twice-fired government minister had failed MI6 vetting, despite journalists putting that directly to Downing Street that very same month. Mr. Speaker, we all know that the Prime Minister appointed Mandelson because he owes his job to him. Yep. He appointed him, he defended him, and now he claims to know nothing. He is gaslighting the nation. Yep. So let's call this out for what it is. The Prime Minister is a barefaced liar, and if he had any decency left...
No, order. Sit and leave. Leave now. I'll name you otherwise. I'd go now if I were you. Leave. I'm not. Leave. I've now named. I've given the option to leave. I'd leave if I were you very quickly. Move before I read it and give me one option. Right, give me that. You have no duties. It's my duty to carry out and control this House. One chance. Do you want to leave now or not?
My constituents to tell the truth, and the Prime Minister is
I
not
name
here.
Zara Sultana. Minister, I beg to move that the name, the said member, be suspended from the House.
Mr. Speaker, call Jane Kitchen.
Jane Kitchener.
I beg to move that Zara Sultana be suspended from the service of the House.
The question is that Zara Sultana be named and leave this House. All those in favour? Aye. Leave. I'm sorry you've done this. I really am. Right.
Next clip. Next clip. Because she wanted company.
The public don't believe him. The MPs on this side of the House don't believe him. His own gullible backbenchers don't believe him. So does the Prime Minister agree with me? He's been lying.
Prime Minister, sorry, we don't use those words, and I'm sure the members withdrawn it.
Mr. Speaker, I have the greatest respect for you and your office, but I will not withdraw. That man couldn't lie straight in bed.
Order. Mr. Anderson, you'll have to leave. Phil Brettle.
One believe.
He was a little more lenient with him than he was with her, though. He was a little rougher.
Well, she got the opportunity to. She could have retracted it, but she didn't. You know, that's unparliamentary language, isn't it? You can't call people a liar or whatever. You can't insult people like that.
They should extend that to gaslighting.
Yeah.
They should extend that to gaslighting. Affordability has never been so good.
I put in another one here that we have to have, which is Keir Starmer did an impression of Roadrunner. We got to listen to that.
Yeah, let's do that one. Beep, beep. Beep.
What a disaster.
Yeah. He's in the final days, so I don't think.
Yeah, well, the only thing keeping him alive really is that, like I said, the other camps haven't quite figured it out who they want to replace him with or who will replace him, because he's seen as the lesser of two evils for a lot of people. And I think if you're just a run-of-the-mill British fellow on the street there, he is the lesser of many evils, because he's going to be replaced by some real nutters, like some real freaks.
We got a really good salute coming up, so stick around. We're almost through this. We got one here from a former Brit as well, Steve Hilton. He's running for governor of California. So lots of foreign governors there. The famous one, Arnold the Terminator Schwarzenegger, a German, and now Steve Hilton, a Brit. Here, let's listen in on this.
Austrian.
Oh, you're talking about
just like
Arnold, yeah.
Yeah.
Newsom, you know, he fixed the homelessness problem many years ago. He kept announcing that he's fixed it while the problem gets worse. I mean, this guy's a total disgrace, Gavin Newsom. If it's been fixed, then why is the money still going out? He says it was fixed in 2021. Those payments were from 2024. Right. He's just lying and gaslighting as he is on every single issue. And the truth is that California has got more fraud than the rest of America put together. And Dr. Oz is absolutely right. We need cooperation with the federal government. When I'm governor, that's what we'll get. In the meantime, I mean, we're trying to find it as well. My organisation, Cal Doge, part of my campaign, we estimate now that the total fraud in the last 5 years in California, $434 billion. And what are they doing about it? Nothing, because they have total contempt for taxpayers. They don't consider it that it's our money that they're stealing and wasting, and that is why they're going to lose this year.
So Gavin Newsom, and we've done lots on Gavin Newsom, and he reminds me of like Honest Al or Greedy Gav, you know, like used car lot when you walk on there and you got, you know, you got the pennants flying down there and they've got all the lemons in there, and Greedy Gav walks out there and he's just rubbing his hands and he just wants to figure out how to get his hands in your pocket as deep as he can drive them in there and sell you a lemon.
It's the hair. I think it's the hair that it makes it, you know, I know a lot of people like to attack my hair, but I feel like his hair tells you a story that he's like, he is like a salesman or something. But he was on some podcast that was like clips were doing the rounds from this podcast where he was talking about, you know, transgender whatever it is, reassignment surgery. And he was like, somebody was asking like, yeah, like, but like under 10 or something. That's a bit crazy, isn't it? And he was like, yeah, I've changed my mind now that I've got a 9-year-old or something. It's like this slime. It's just so dishonest, you know. It's so disingenuous. It's obvious that he's just like, he's put his finger to the wind, and he's like, okay, if I want to win anything, if I want to be president, then I have to like completely backtrack and change all my positions. It's just a bit undignified, really, isn't it? Especially when you look like that. You look like a Futurama character. You know, you look like a scam salesman.
I was going to say, get on the phone with the Liberals and ask you how you'd go from one day where it's total fear to like the best deal ever. But the Liberals likely learned from the Democrats. So I don't know who's
Somebody
driving.
found out that Steve Hilton is his parents were Hungarian, which is true. Fact check, true. Hungarian domination right now.
The Huns.
The Magyars.
Magyars. Here's James Moore talking about the love affair with media here and Mark Carney.
Look, I mean, there's a bit of a love affair going on as well. Let's be honest, right? I mean, maybe 3 great love affairs in history: Romeo and Juliet, Will and Kate, and the national media and Mark Carney. I mean, the national media really likes this guy. They've known him for a long time, and they're giving him a free pass so far. But he's, in the short time that he's been Liberal leader, without any real protest, without any real pushback, he doesn't really have opposition within the Liberal Party. He has a free run of things, and so far he has made some mistakes that he has to be accountable for. Right? He says in English that he'll use extraordinary powers to show national leadership to build a pipeline from east to west. And then he says something very different in French, that he will respect Quebec's position and things. He says that everything should be on the table with regard to trade, but then he leaves it set aside for some industries. He says he's going to balance the budget inside of 3 years, but then he says he's going to run deficits in order to make sure that we backstop Canadians who might be hurt by Donald Trump tariffs. I mean, you cannot play the age-old, game-old trick in Canadian politics of saying one thing in English and a different thing in French and think you can get away with it. And he's getting away with it within the Liberal Party because there is a consensus view amongst elites around Mark Carney that he is one of theirs and they're rallying around him. But when push comes to shove and an election campaign is called and he's called to task and held accountable on these inconsistencies, then we'll see how stern his stuff is made of. And
Good. It's not funny. That girl on the left there is giggling. Like, this is serious. This is democracy being threatened and the media not doing their job to hold them accountable. The media has failed Canada. The media in that room there, right there, the CBC, CTV, and the rest of them have failed Canada by not holding them to account. I mean, there's so much there. There's so much rotting, stinking fish on the table, and they just don't seem to be able to smell it, see it. I don't know how they can walk around a room just full of stench, and they can't see it. They can't see the rot. But as soon as Polyev walks in, that's all they see is rot.
I think the most important fact about this video here is that, or at least these tweets, that they're from February 2025. This is more than a year old, and yet nothing that he said there has changed. That's a completely accurate description of April 2026. So it's like,
that's what I mean. That's why I was
not
using
only was he right then, but he's right now.
Yeah, it's basically hasn't changed. This love affair, he said he's going to be held accountable. He has not. He has not. Right? And that's why this is so
the love affair is even stronger now. It's even more passionate.
Yeah. It's crazy. And look at this next one here. There you go. One word: defund.
Some angry faces there. That's not a very nice picture in the bottom left of, I always forget her name. Is she Janice McGregor? Is that her name?
That's it. Yeah. The one
making her look terrible.
The one in the center bottom there is the radio host there that is just a pit bull with Pierre, and just the nicest person in the world. She's a Jekyll and Hyde for sure. When Pierre is on there, she's a nasty. And then of course they got Rachel Gilmore. She makes it in there as well.
And that's a very flattering picture of her. She usually doesn't look anywhere near as normal as that. So that's really unfair on bottom left woman, and way too kind to middle right woman, I think. So I reject.
I want to get to the really big salute here. We're gonna miss a couple of these things in here, but I do want to talk about Kevin Warsh. He should be in hearings right now. Kevin Warsh, the new Fed, they're trying to get confirmed here at the Senate. And, you know, like there's lots of talks that interest rates may go up in Canada. And I would say that there is a compelling argument to be made if Kevin Warsh is confirmed that they're going to push rates down dramatically in the United States, which would in turn likely drive rates down here in Canada, because the Canadian dollar is artificially suppressed for a long time because we're an exporter. Typically, export nations try to devalue their dollar. And you know why they try to devalue their dollar? Is because they pay the workers cheaper wages and sell at higher prices. Do you see how that works? So if you're an export nation, you want to devalue your dollar because you can pay your employees at a lower level and sell at higher dollars. Then you get the spread. So I mean, some people don't see that, and then they portray it to you. Oh, that's how we get jobs. No, that's how you devalue the worker. That's how you devalue the worker. And that's how the Canadian worker gets less money. You're getting 72 cents on the dollar. So they're paying 72 cents on the dollar and then selling it in a US price commodity. People don't see that. But Kevin Warsh, if he gets confirmed, is likely going to drive interest rates down in the US because he's, you know, a Trump appointee, and Trump wants interest rates really low because he's trying to drive a manufacturing, he's trying to get interest rates, he's trying to put capital into markets. And the Canadians will have no choice if they want to keep this advantage they have on the Canadian worker, but to drive the dollar down, because it'll actually go up. So the really big salute, and none other than, we'll give it to Apple and Tim Cook here, as Tim Cook set to step down as CEO, and he's going to be replaced by John Turnus here. We got a little clip here with that Tim Cook walking into there, give himself a hamburger here. Let's watch this.
What's the business?
That's Tim, modest as well as Steve Jobs was. Steve Jobs wore like the same turtleneck and modest clothing, and Tim moving pretty slow though, right? I guess it's time for him to go. But this graphic here that I want to put up and shows you Apple under Steve and Apple under, is that the full graphic? Yeah. And you can show you the products that Steve Jobs brought in, the iMac, Mac OS, iPod, and the big one, you know, obviously the iPhone. That was the moment for Apple for sure. The iPhone changing the world, the MacBook Air, the App Store, which is a huge moneymaker for them, the iPad, iCloud, and then under Tim Cook's thing, you know, the Apple Watch, Apple Pay, AirPods. Not a lot of development. A lot of financial development under Tim Cook, but not a lot of new products, right? Apple Vision Pro has been kind of a flop, actually. So, you know, like really the big one is the game changer in there. All of that is, you know, the Mac, the iMac, and obviously the iPhone is
the most interesting thing I'm seeing there is you look at iPod, and I look back on that. That was such an enormous cultural event. Yeah. Everybody had an iPod, and it seemed to change everything. And yet, it didn't really do anything to Apple.
But sometimes things take time, though, too, right? You're seeing a lot of that stuff that's into market, and then it takes time for it to kind of like. The App Store is an absolute moneymaker. Like I think they take 30% on all downloads, right? So.
Yeah, they're pretty
it's
brutal
huge.
about that, aren't they?
It's huge. And like Apple Vision Pro, AirTags, you know, the M1 chip, all that, you know, like, you know, Tim Cook, I mean, he's done a good job keeping, you know, financially. Like if we look at the stock chart here, and we'll see that later here, but I just want to put up a picture of Tim and Steve Jobs, and that's Steve when he was sick, obviously, looking pretty gaunt there. But Apple is a huge company. It's one of the top ones, right? $4 trillion, right? That's the market.
But as you say, though, hasn't really innovated that much lately.
No,
has
it's been.
I guess didn't need to. It's been consolidating.
And it's a big threat right now. Is AI is a big threat because Apple, you know, Siri has failed miserably on AI, right? I mean, they lost their, you know. Steve Jobs. What was the guy's name? He's a British guy, John, I think.
I know his name, but well, somewhere in my head. John W. What? Did you get it?
No, not Wozniak. No, it's John Ives. I think John Ives, right?
Ives, there you go. Johnny Ive.
Johnny Ives, yeah. Johnny Ives, yeah. He was the designer of the iPhone. And I believe he went to
Sorry,
Meta.
Johnny, mate.
Yeah. So the new guy has to kind of like figure out this AI, because Siri is as dumb as Amazon or dumb as Alexa. So they've failed miserably in that regard. And it's going there, right? So NVIDIA at the top of the market cap, right? NVIDIA, Alphabet, that's Google, and Apple in third position. So in market cap, it's NVIDIA at 4.9 trillion, and these change by the minute, right? Google or Alphabet, and then Apple at 4 trillion. I mean, they're all neck and neck, right? And but I mean, these are all American companies. NVIDIA has a higher market cap than the whole TSX. NVIDIA has a higher market cap than Canada's GDP. Alphabet, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Broadcom, Meta, Taiwan Semiconductor, Tesla. Those are the top 10. Oh, and Berkshire Hathaway pulling up the rear there. But, and if we pull up this stock chart here, Apple's stock price under Tim Cook, I mean, he's done a heck of a job in the stock price driving that, right? Explosive financial growth for the two. And the guy taking the helm is John Turnus. He's 51 years old. He looks younger, though. And he was an Apple hardware engineer and exec, set to become CEO on September 1. Doesn't have a lot of hauteur, though. It doesn't have a lot of credentialism. He's just a mechanical engineer with a bachelor's degree from the University of Pennsylvania. Hey? Missing all the hauteur.
Yeah, we know someone else from that university, don't we?
What's that?
We know someone else that went to that university.
Well, you do know that guy. Does his name start with Elon? His name starts with Elon? There you go. He didn't go to Harvard. Harvard. That's it.
I wonder if any of his many children will go there.
That's our show. That's our show for today. Apple changed the world in many regards. Apple changed media. Basically, the death of the newspaper. This little device right here changed media. It, you know, when the newspaper, the printing press was a major change, and I'll just do this real quick. The printing press was major. What was that? The early 1800s, right? The printing press? Or was it earlier than that?
15th century, so at time.
The printing press was huge, though, because all of a sudden you could have newspapers. The printing press, and then radio came along, and they said, well, that would be the death of the newspaper. Obviously, it didn't, right? Because radio was programming, so people still love the newspaper, right? And then television came along in the 50s, I believe. And that was supposed to kill radio and the newspaper. It didn't do either, because it was just a different type of programming. The internet came along, and it was supposed to kill everything. And it didn't. It was kind of like the wild, wild west with the internet, right? You know, like it was, plus it was slow, and you hear that dial-up screaming. The device that changed everything is none other than the iPhone. That was the device that changed everything, because you could put the web in your hands. The internet came in your hands. It was easy to get around. You didn't have to sit down in front of a computer. The web was in your hand. That was the decline of traditional media. It was basically the decline. And right now, it's all about video. And that's why we're talking to you right here, right now. It's all about video.
Well, and also because the Liberal government decided to
that too.
Drive a situation where media was banned on social media, the most important social media platforms.
That's what
well
Clark
done.
said, right? Who wants a phone without a keyboard? That's what they said to Apple. Who wants a phone without a keyboard? Apparently,
But I can just remember people
everybody.
like shaking their heads because it was like a digital keyboard. It was like, "I'll never work."
I hated the 8380. That was my last BlackBerry. I had quite a few BlackBerries, but the 8380, I got the first iPhone. And it was clunky and it was bigger and but it was a game changer as far as the internet went, right?
Yeah.
There you go. That's it. That's our show. I'm back at noon with Renee Merrifield and Beyond the Ballot. That's it. And I'm going to get a different shirt on because I had a wardrobe malfunction. Not as I guess, shocking as Janet Jackson and Justin Bieber. Was it Janet Jackson, I think, Justin Bieber at the NFL halftime show?
Oh, yeah.
I think it was Janet Jackson when he did the tearaway, when he went to spinner.
I thought you were going to say not as bad as Wayne Long.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, he just bursts out of it, doesn't he?
I think he has a brain malfunction. Oh, anyway, Timberlake. That's right. That's right. Justin Timberlake. Sorry. Thank you, Brett, for that. Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson.
What did you say?
Justin Bieber.
Oh, Bieber, right. Yeah. Easily confused, I guess.
I think they're the same person. Anyway. Justin McGregor. That's right. The Oilers, how'd they do? Did Conor McGregor score in the Oilers game?
Justin McDavid.
Did Conor McGregor get any goals in the first game as an Oiler? I would never let that fool live that down. Anyway. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. PST. And if you want, come back here at noon for Renee Merrifield and myself. Cheers. You'll see Ian and I tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. PST sharp on the Really Big Show. Thanks for watching.